What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Water Cooler Talk. My name is Caleb Turner, and I'm a sports writer at KSL.com. It's October 20th, 2024. We're back to give you your weekend recap, look ahead to this week, so y'all can know what you need to talk about at your jobs, with your friends, with your coworkers around the water cooler. Start out with a recap of what went down this week in the world of sports here in the state of Utah. We'll start with a bit of hockey. As we talked about a lot last week, I kind of broke it down into these three storylines that were kind of taking over Utah sports with Utah hockey, BYU, and the Utah Royals winning several in a row. I feel like I kind of jinxed a couple of those teams, with Utah hockey being one of those, unfortunately. Uh, Hockey Club picks up their first loss when they went out on the road, picked up their first overtime loss as well, which up until this point I didn't realize was a separate thing in hockey. But if you look at the standings, look at the record for NHL teams, there's another column that's OTL, overtime losses. So Utah Hockey picks up one of those, and then they also, on the flip side of things, picked up an overtime win. So a little bit of everything this week for the young Utah Hockey Club. Four overtime games already this season. Um, so a lot of entertaining but tense hockey being played early on for this team in their powder blue. But they will be they're at home, and they will continue to be at home. We'll look ahead to that a little bit later on. But yeah, a little bit of a bumpy road there as they went away from Utah, but looking to hopefully right the ship a little bit going forward. The other Delta Center resident, the Utah Jazz, finished up their preseason, beating the Sacramento Kings, but then they lost to the Portland Trailblazers. So they end their preseason on a little bit of a high, then a low there, and they'll open up their regular season this week at the Delta Center. Moving on to a little bit of college football, BYU. Whew, I was lucky enough to be at this game, BYU Oklahoma State, Friday evening, Lavelle Edwards Stadium, Provo, Utah. BYU comes out with the win, 38 to 35, on a last minute drive by quarterback Jake Retzlaff finds Darius Lassiter for the game winning touchdown with like 10 seconds to go, which gives BYU their seventh win in a row to start the season. Um, Certainly, one of the biggest stories in the state right now as far as sports go, and they will look to keep that going as well. On the flip side of things, Utah State up in Logan lost to New Mexico 50 to 45. Man, if you're looking for defense, not a whole lot there, but offense, my goodness. Bronco Mendenhall, former BYU coach, goes up to Logan with New Mexico and drops a 50 bag on the good old Aggies up there at Maverick Stadium. So they've lost six in a row, the Aggies, which not a great look, and they'll also look to be turning things around, as will the Utah Utes, which they lost their third in a row to TCU, 13 to 7. That was a home game, and it was just looking really rough offensively. And we'll go a little more into this later in our winners and losers, but some changes going on up there up on the hill for the Utes. Lastly, we'll close out the recaps with a little bit of soccer. Real Salt Lake playing their last game of the regular season yesterday, Saturday at America First Field, beating the Vancouver Whitecaps 2-1. They'll start the playoffs not this week, but the following week against Minnesota United, first round of the Western Conference playoffs. It's a round of three, best out of three. But Real Salt Lake has home field advantage, meaning games one and three, if necessary, will be played here in Utah. And lastly, the Utah Royals, the other team that I may have jinxed a little bit, talking about them last week, didn't lose, ended up with a tie. But unfortunately, the way things unfolded around the NWSL over the weekend, their league, a team ahead of them, Bay FC, won their game yesterday, and that eliminated the Royals from playoff contention. So technically, today's game and their finale that they'll play in a couple weeks, not really counting for much other than self-respect, I guess. Um, but yeah, Royals go on the road and actually pick up a draw against Angel City, the Los Angeles team. 1-1 result for them there. Unfortunately, Chloe Lacasse, who you might remember from what I mentioned last week, she got a hat trick in their last home game, 3-0 win. She picks up an injury, a knee injury, in their game against Angel City. Being told it's not as serious as it may have looked, so we'll hope to get her back. But they will be tying up their season here in a couple weeks with their regular season finale on November 1st. And now to more look aheads, more uh, closer look aheads this week as opposed to in 2 weeks. But Utah Hockey Club, they, as I mentioned, they're at home, Delta Center. Go check them out if you have the opportunity. They say that hockey, you have to see it live to be converted fully to the sport as a fan. So if you get a chance, they have two home games in a row this week, Tuesday and Thursday against the Senators and the Avalanche. The Avalanche game kind of stands out to me. Colorado, obviously, so it's kind of a bit of a Rocky Mountain rivalry, if you will. I know that's a thing with Real Salt Lake and the Colorado Rapids, maybe with a couple other teams as well, and maybe we can get something going between UHC and the Avs. So that's one at home this week for them. And then, like I mentioned, Jazz opening up the regular season at the Delta Center on Wednesday. So Delta Center employees will go ice, Jazz, then ice again Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Jazz taking on the Memphis Grizzlies, John Morant and company at the Delta Center to open up the regular season. It'll be interesting to see what the Jazz look like this season. Preseason, obviously, not the best look at what a team or their rotations might look like. We don't fully know until the real games start being played. So a lot of maybe opinions, people down on the Jazz this season. We'll see what happens, but maybe reserve judgment until that opener Wednesday night. So we'll see what happens. College football this next weekend. All the teams are on the road, so I guess if you have nothing better to do, hockey and the Jazz will fill your time when college football is not here. Or if you're going on the road, BYU heading down to Florida, East Coast trip down to UCF on Saturday. Utah State just going up the road a bit to Wyoming, taking on the Cowboys. Also Saturday, and the Utes heading down to the Lone Star State, taking on the Houston Cougars before they take on the BYU Cougars in a few more weeks. They'll face Houston also on Saturday in Big 12 play. And that brings us into our drumroll please winners and losers of the weekend. This one might be one of our more obvious, most straightforward winners and losers section. As you may have guessed, it's a holy war, winners and losers. Winner, BYU, loser, Utah. Now, we can dive into this maybe a little bit more. At BYU, as I mentioned previously, won 7 in a row, um, playing in the same league as Utah. Big 12, great opponents. That was probably their toughest one so far against Oklahoma State. They really, the Cowboys really brought it to Provo, and the Cougars were still able to come out on top. So I'll go in a little more to them as far as the rankings. AP Top 25 go with the Cougars in a bit, but they've got to be a winner. Last minute drive, electric atmosphere. If for no other reason than, I'll include my bias that I was there and got to participate in that incredible win. Got to give it to him this week for the Cougars. Loser, Utah. Add a little more detail here. Obviously, like I mentioned, three losses in a row. Isaac Wilson struggled, true freshman. Cam Rising out for the season. An array of things you can kind of point to here. But as far as actual changes that have happened to Utah in the aftermath of this loss, their offensive coordinator Andy Ludwig stepped down just barely tonight. Breaking news Sunday evening. Obviously, you score just 7 points in a home game. Not great from an offensive perspective. So, fingers being pointed certainly around the program, around the fan base, and Ludwig is the first one to go. If for more on that, please check out Josh Furlong's story on who might be playing the calls now, or calling the plays there on the sideline for the Utes. But yeah, when you lose several in a row, and then you lose one of your top three coaches on the team, sorry Utes, sorry Utah fans, but you've got to be included in the losers side this week. And another one, I won't quite put this in the losers because I don't want to make it all about injuries. It's obviously not the fault of the team. But unfortunately, a couple Utah Hockey Club defenders, Sean Dursey being one of them, going down injured this last week. So defense looking maybe a little thin for them I know they've called up a couple players, might try to kind of fill in those gaps. They do still have Sergachev, of course, on the back line and Ingram in goal. So still plenty to look forward to there, and they've been taking it to teams still. A lot of offense, certainly, 4 or 5 goals in a lot of games. So if you want exciting offensive hockey, certainly, but defensively, maybe struggling a little bit for the Utah Hockey Club. And lastly, we're bringing back a little bit of stock up, stock down, buy, sell type of thing. And my take on this, not financial advice, but yes, sports stock advice, I guess, whatever that might mean. I would say to you, as long as BYU keeps winning and rising in the AP, rising, you like how I included that there, in the AP top 25 poll, currently at number 11. They weren't in the poll to begin the season, and they've risen every week. As long as they keep going up and keep winning, their stock is going to go up and up. And the reverse is true for the Utes. Losing streak, you keep losing. The Utah State Aggies as well. Losing streak, stock goes down. Winning streak, stock goes up. And especially when they're being recognized from a national level with the AP Top 25 poll, BYU, you know, arguably a top 10 team. They're right outside of it in the nation. We're going into obviously a super important stretch of the season here these next few weeks as teams get prepared for the college football rankings to be released. It's going to be a huge year for college football. The first time a 12-team playoff is going to happen in the NCAA in college football, so that'll be huge. We'll know more about that in November, and early on in November, we'll have a pivotal meeting with everything between BYU and Utah leading to November 9th at Rice Eccles Stadium. Of course, the Holy War, the Desert Duel, as it was once known. Battle between the blue and red up there here in Salt Lake City. Can BYU keep winning? Will Utah keep losing? We shall see. We'll know exactly where these two teams stand and how they stack up against each other. I think we might know this point, but who the best team in the state is between these two teams. Now Big 12 co-conference members, partners, brothers, and foes, rivals in this conference. More meaning, perhaps, to this meeting than in past iterations. And November 9th, put on your calendars, stock up, stock down. It's all going to come colliding in on that day. Should be a banger. So make sure you guys look forward to that. If you have questions, comments, suggestions for this podcast, things you'd like to hear more about, feel free to message me at me on X, Twitter, at CalebTurner23. Shoot me an email if you prefer that, kslwatercoolertalk@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you guys. Would love to hear what you're interested in. I will try to have a guest coming up here in the next couple shows to give you guys a little more flavor, a little more insight into the teams and players that are appearing on your screens and in your stadiums here in the state of Utah. A shout out to my boy Diego Luna that I had on the show a few weeks ago. Scored a nice goal this weekend for Real Salt Lake. So maybe I can pitch that as it's a good luck charm. If people come out on this podcast, they'll play better. So hopefully have that for you guys either next week or the next couple weeks, and look forward to chatting with you soon. We'll see you later.